Thank you for inviting us into your home again. This is Cigar Time.
Your ever so friendly cigar, all about premium cigars.
You forgot show.
Show about premium.
No, it's ever friendly cigars.
Okay, since it's been a while since we really introduced everybody, I thought we would take a moment and just introduce everybody. To my left, we have Mary Ann. To her left, we have Moose. To my right, we have Rob. And to his right, we have...
Mayamo Escata.
Who?
Mayamo Escata.
Oh, my Nemo. Okay.
Yeah, what he said.
And today we're going to be talking all about...
Je m'appelle.
Who wants to talk?
Southern Draw.
Southern Draw.
New to our stores.
New to our store, but one of the hottest new cigars around.
It is, actually.
And what a wonderful, wonderful story that Scott's going to tell you all about.
Sure.
After we light.
Well, first, the blend on this is a Habano Oscuro wrapper. The binder is from Nicaragua. It's from Omnatepe, which is it's a volcano in Lake Nicaragua. And then it's got Nicaraguan fillers along with some fillers from the good old USA.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's Pennsylvania or Connecticut. I'm guessing it's
Pennsylvania.
the filler. It's Pennsylvania.
I'm guessing
yeah.
it's Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's also got a closed foot. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a closed foot.
You lit it already.
I did not.
Oh,
I lit mine.
I purposely didn't light it, Moose, just so I can say that.
He likes to share.
you gotta think about feet.
Why is your ashtray so dirty?
Southern Draw is a company that
Mine is
is
clean.
formed, owned, and operated by a couple of military families. I think the face of the name of the company is Robert Holt. And Robert was in the Navy, I believe,
Okay.
or maybe the Hogan was his name. Anyway, it's a military family. They're from the South, hence the name Southern Draw. They've got a number of different cigars with a number of different blends, almost all named after, for one reason or another, some type of plant or flower or vine. We're smoking the Kudzu, which is the Kudzu is a Kudzu. I can never pronounce it right.
Kudzu.
Is actually a very invasive vine that is primarily found in the South. It was imported from Japan. Then they have the Jacob's Ladder, which has a PA41 wrapper that is also named after a flower. We have the Fire-Thorn, which has a Habano Rosado from Ecuador. That is a tall, flowering evergreen shrub. And then finally is the Rose of Sharon, which is also a flowering bush. Has an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, and I think they named the cigar Rose of Sharon because Robert's wife, Sharon, is Sharon.
Yes, she is.
Did you figure that out all by yourself?
I did.
I'm amazed.
They're nice people.
They are really
nice.
very, very nice people. Again, Robert was here, and Rob and I spent about a half hour, 45 minutes
at the show
in Vegas talking with Robert and Sharon, and like really nice people. They're also a very charitable organization.
Yes.
Most of that is driven by Sharon, and Robert will attest to that. The other cigar that I haven't mentioned that's located in the middle is called the 300 Manos. And that's named it has that name because of the roughly 300 different hands that will touch the tobacco in the cigar before it gets to you. Very, very nice cigars, moderately priced. They have one that has a Habano wrapper and the other has a Maduro. They each come in 5 different sizes. The beauty of this is 25% of the proceeds from the sale of this cigar, Southern Draw donates to individuals in Nicaragua. I guess the families in Nicaragua will write them postcards and letters about needs that they have, and they will take that money. So the money goes directly to individuals. It doesn't go
That's
to
awesome.
UNICEF or whatever of Nicaragua. It goes to individuals. Like they paid for one person. They needed back surgery. Now that person would have never walked again. So now that person can get around.
That's awesome.
I believe
Yeah,
the
it is.
displays in each store has a story.
It has, there's a brief story. There's also little cards that talk about some of the individuals that have benefited from this. So that, and it's actually a wonderful cigar. In fact, the Habano is probably, of all the Southern Draw cigars, is the Habano 300 Manos is probably my favorite.
And
Really?
very modestly priced.
I haven't had that
Yeah,
down
it's
here.
like
I have it in Doro.
640 to 720, I think,
Yeah.
the prices.
Very
That's great.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
And
So-
you're really doing good and getting a great cigar to boot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the 300 Manos are available as we're taping the show, are available in Horsham and Colmar. The Southern Draw, their other cigars are available in Horsham, Colmar, Quakertown, and Downingtown. And Kevin from Downingtown was one of the driving forces behind
Yeah.
getting this cigar into the store.
And we'll eventually be putting them into all the stores.
Right. That's why.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I said as of the taping, especially that 300 Manos, because
Yeah.
it's such a great organization and such a charitable thing to do.
Very philanthropic.
That's a much better word than my charitable.
It's a big word, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Did that hurt you to say?
It did not.
Good.
So it's just another one of the boutique lines that we're adding to our portfolio.
We seem to be adding more boutique lines.
Yeah.
That
In
is a
certain
beautiful
stores,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is kind of where the industry's going. I mean,
I think
you
it's a
still
big
have your
fad.
bread and
Yeah.
and butter. You know, your Romeos, Monte Cristos, the Ashtons, Fuentes, Padron, but we're generating a good bit of sales from some of these smaller companies.
Well, I think the force at work is there are younger, a lot of people refer to them as millennials. There's a lot of younger smokers that want to try new products, things that they might deem as, I guess, to use
Trendy.
an old word. Well, I was going to say hip. So
Oh, okay.
trendy, hip, yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good thing because it shouldn't be just, old farts like me smoking. I mean, it's good to get new people into the game and new people enjoying and relaxing and,
Yeah.
I also think it's a lot of age has a little bit to do with it, but I think it's those people who smoke cigars who really get into it. Like those people that are constantly reading. And, I've got, we've got guys in stores that are, seniors that love this kind of stuff
Yeah.
and they read about it. And so it's that more, I don't want to say more educated, but more people who are more into the whole aficionadism of cigars are
And I
really
think-
into that.
I think some of the boutique lines are also a bit edgy, with not only their names and their presentations, but then even some of the blends. They push the
Agreed.
envelope a little
Yeah.
bit in certain things.
Yeah.
So that to me is a really good thing.
Well, they have to somehow figure out how to
Yeah,
set
they-
themselves
right.
apart from everybody else.
else, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, and that may also be one of the things that's pushing a lot of companies that are going through some repackaging,
Yeah.
and making a lot of the stuff stand out more on the retailer shelves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because sometimes
sense.
what catches your eye is half the story.
Yeah, I always tell the story about Padron, where I didn't smoke Padron for years and years because I'm like, look at it, how good could it be?
They don't need,
You just like,
they don't need to do
no,
it.
once you smoke it, no, they know.
Well, they don't even.
Yeah, they get you.
They don't do much.
Yeah.
They just make a good cigar at a reasonable price.
This cigar puts out a lot of smoke.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of smoke.
Sure does. I like that. We're using a closed foot. You get a real blast of what the wrapper is.
Right.
up
First time,
front.
yeah.
Exactly.
Do we go around the table and get our first impressions? Other than a lot of smoke?
Start down that, and I got a later start when I was explaining some stuff.
We were talking too much.
So
Yeah.
you.
Moose, we'll start with you. Gibbs got a little time to catch up.
Well, other than the smoke, which has already been mentioned, very tasty. I'm enjoying this. I haven't quite figured out the flavors yet, though.
Marianne?
I'm enjoying the smoke very much. I'm 100% behind this company. I think it's a great small company that's going to do some great things. As far as the cigar, this time it's catching me in the back of my throat, which hasn't happened the last two times.
I was going to say something about that.
This one I agree with, but it's very tasty and so far a good burn.
Rob?
I'm getting a sweetness to it
Yeah.
in the beginning. I'm also getting a little nutty taste also from it. So far so good. I'm power smoking this stuff because for some reason, I don't know why.
Scott?
I get that sweetness that you mentioned, but I think that comes from I think it's coming directly from the wrapper as
Yeah.
opposed to from the smoke.
Yep.
I haven't identified flavors yet, and I may not, but I can tell you, like, it's, I can feel that right down the center of my tongue is where I'm tasting it. It's like like almost like tiny bubbles tingling right down the center of my tongue.
Tiny bubbles.
I can tell you,
He feels it tingling all over his body.
I'm drinking artificially sweetened green tea, and for some reason, the mixture of the green tea, which, like I say, is sweetened artificially, and the smoke from the cigar, it's just a wonderful taste.
Yeah.
It's just, and I get a really great sensation of sweetness, like few other cigars have done, to be honest.
There's an interesting flavor going on there that I can't, different. A good different. I can't quite
Like a
put my
cheese?
finger on
You
what it
done the
reminds me
retrohale?
of. Yeah, of course I did. I had to hold it back and sneeze.
Yeah.
That's where I get the nuttiness.
Yeah, yeah.
So through the retrohale.
Still can't do it.
Well, as we continue to enjoy
Can't do it.
as we continue to enjoy our smoke, Scott will educate us and regale us with the vast storage of knowledge that he has on
Or
various
whatever I
subjects.
read last night.
Yeah.
One of those two things.
Something like that. I'm glad you've studied hard and long about it.
I have studied hard. I don't know if any of it sunk in, but we'll find out in
find
a
out.
second.
Give it a
maybe,
shot.
Maybe you guys can actually help me.
Well, we'll try.
So far we've talked about the pretty much everything regarding making the cigar, from growing the tobacco all the way through the packaging. So now I thought we'd try and touch a little bit more on countries of origin, because that's where you get into a lot of the different flavors and a lot of differences in the way cigars are made and processed, etc. Most cigars today are made in Nicaragua, the Dominican, and Honduras, although there are other countries that cigars are made in: Ecuador, Mexico, the United States, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Cuba. That's the other one. They make cigars in Cuba. Not sure if you knew that, though.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, though, is a cigar is actually classified as Nicaraguan, Dominican, etc., based on where it's made.
Right.
It has zero to do with the tobacco that's in the cigar, which is that's very different from wine. There are a lot of similarities between wine and coffee and the regions that they grow in and how they're processed. But with cigars, the cigar is classified as Dominican because that's where it's made.
Right.
So, when you smoke a Dominican cigar, it doesn't really tell you much about it other than that's where it was made. What's more important is where the tobacco was grown. And most important is the terroir, or the territory of the region or the country that it's grown in. And the terroir refers to the soil content, the microclimate in that area, and also geography. As I did some research on this, one of the reasons I learned, like in the Dominican Republic, that they don't grow a lot of wrapper tobacco is because of the geography. You get a lot of wind that destroys the plants. It makes it very difficult to grow wrapper tobacco. So the terroir actually has a big effect on the flavors of the cigar. So today I specifically wanted to talk about the Dominican Republic. Okay. Dominican tobacco is typically mild but very flavorful. It's not to say that it can't be fuller bodied or full strength, because it can.
Opus X.
Yeah, Opus X is a great example, or La Flor Dominicana. But those cigars use tobacco that comes from higher from the plant, which is called Ligero. They get more nutrients, so you have more nicotine content, and it's a fuller flavor and a fuller strength tobacco. But tobacco production starts in July or August in the Dominican Republic, and about 35 to 45 days after that is when during the July and August is when they're preparing the fields. Then sometime in September is when they start to plant the seedlings, and then, as you've learned from other shows, about 45 to 60 days after that is when they start to do the primings and cultivate the tobacco and do the drying and the fermentation, etc. There are two primary families of tobacco in the Dominican Republic. The first one is Olor Dominicano. Olor Dominicano is a native strain to the Dominican Republic.
Allure.
What did I say, odor?
Yeah,
But it
you
wasn't
did.
Allure.
It's Olor.
What did I say? I said Olor, whatever. Olor Dominicana. It's a native strain. It's a thinner leaf that's typically used for binder. It has a very nice aroma. but again, it's typically used in the binder of the cigar, which keeps all the fillers intact. The next is Piloto Cubano. That's a Cuban seed. That's a richer, fuller strength cigar, typically used for the filler. And then there's a third that is, I guess, a relatively new, which is San Vicente. San Vicente is a very aromatic cigar, or aromatic tobacco, that was originally cultivated in the Ajo, what is it?
Yuha Abajo.
Yuha
Not
Abajo.
Yuha. That's U-Haul.
That's you.
Yuha Abato region in
That's close enough.
in Cuba.
Which
It's
is
less.
Western Cuba.
Yes, it's less potent than the Piloto Cubano, and it's a little bit more acidic. It's also a leaf that's most commonly found in cigars from Davidoff. Like to me, I've done a tasting with the 3 different tobaccos that go into a cigar. Most of us have done that, but the San Vicente tobacco really reminds me of almost like a spice, like almost oregano or thyme or something like that. Because I did that, whenever I smoke a Davidoff, I can taste that in the cigar.
Right.
So overall, the Dominican's mostly known for fillers and tobacco they use for binders. As I touched on a couple seconds ago, it's not really known for wrapper tobacco, although Carlos Fuente really pushed the envelope on that and
Last
has
20 years ago.
has found ways to grow tobacco for Project X from Planet X. Did you know that was the original name for the Opus X?
I did not.
Yes.
Did not.
It's,
Planet
yeah,
X.
it's Project X from Planet X was the pet name
Movie.
for it.
Interesting.
Planet X was a movie.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then somehow or another came out with Opus X.
Yeah.
And it's mostly, as I said, mostly due to the topography, the wind in the Dominican makes wrapper growing very difficult. Most factories that are in the Dominican rely on wrappers that come from other countries like Nicaragua, Cameroon, etc. Some of the more famous or well-known cigars that have Dominican tobacco are the Fuentes, Ashton, Davidoff, the Avo, La Aurora, Romeo, Monte Cristo.
La Aurora's the oldest one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my little spiel on Dominican tobacco. And we really could get into it's a really deep dive on a lot of the characteristics of the tobacco, but I mean that just you could just pick one type of tobacco and talk for hours about the flavor characteristics. And I don't know that I have the time or the knowledge to do.
Well, clearly, the two main countries that cigars that come into this country come from are Nicaragua and Dominican Republic.
Right.
And of course, for the rest of the world, Cuba. And they all have their, pluses and minuses. As you so articulately pointed out, Dominican is not known for their wrappers, but yet Nicaragua is.
Yes.
Certainly Cuba is.
And Ecuador.
And Ecuador.
Yeah.
As far as the
sun-grown,
Yeah.
Yeah, Connecticut.
I mean, actually, a good part of most wrappers seems come from from Ecuador, whether it's a Habano, a Connecticut.
We're in the United States too.
Yeah, but there are other countries like Peru and Brazil that there's a number of cigars that have those as fillers. Fillers are part of
You
the filler.
forgot Mexico.
Oh,
now.
Mexico as well.
Now
That's a
it's-
big one for rappers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mexico
big
is
one for rappers right
really
now.
gone in the last 10 years crazy. I'm really enjoying this cigar.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of Cuba, the United States just changed. I have it written down here. The name of it. They suspended the Title III of the Helms-Burton Act, and I don't know exactly what that is, but
Trading with the enemy.
is it
Yeah,
the train? Okay.
That's basically what it is.
And but they put in one exception is that individuals and companies from the United States are now able to sue Cuba. So if you think about back when Castro took over, they nationalized a lot of. They basically took over everything.
Yeah,
And
they
some of
did.
those industries, some of those manufacturing or service like hotels were owned by Americans, and now I don't know what this gets us, but we are now allowed Americans who had their property taken away are now allowed to officially sue Cuba for remuneration for what they lost, but
I
I don't know if that gets them
We're
anywhere.
not going to get anything.
Yeah, I think it's a Pyrrhic victory because it would be so difficult to prove ownership and trademarks. I mean, there's just a lot. I mean, look at General with Cohiba. I mean, they've had a lot of difficulty in pursuing that, and the Cubans so far have actually won. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of second and third generation cigar makers in this country that trace their roots back to Cuba, but I'm not sure how they would prove ownership of things like real estate and
I don't know. Did they have records?
Yeah, they have.
Well,
I
you
mean,
know,
Like, look at Benji.
It's
I mean,
fun. I was
Benji
gonna bring
must
up
have-
Benji.
Yeah.
They are, you know, having been to a number of cigar factories in Cuba, probably about 8 or 9 of them anyway. You still see references in some of the old books and some of the even decorations on the walls that refer to what today, you know, we would call American cigar makers, but clearly they originated in Cuba. The families like Benji Menendez and etc.
Tranos.
So I mean,
Yeah.
there is some, I guess, proof that these people and their families, you know, they were all families back then.
Yeah.
These families owned this real estate and owned the trademarks and everything. Well, that's going to be, I think by the time any of that was argued and litigated, and I think it would wind up in a world court, which certainly, I'm not sure how leaning towards American citizens they would be, but I don't see it as any clear cut. I mean, I think it's just, I think by the time that we get all this settled, we would be back again in business with Cuba, which, you know, every year seems to be going up and down depending on the administration and power in this country. And I just don't see it as anything quick.
I wonder if this has anything to do with inner workings of opening, you know, or lifting the embargo. I've always wondered, like, let's say one day they do lift the embargo. Cuban cigars aren't going to just start showing up here.
No.
I mean,
Not at all.
They can't.
Actually, I think it retards that. I don't think it's an opening. I think it's more of a closure.
But wouldn't they have to? Yeah, but wouldn't they have to have a lot of? I would guess they would have to have a lot of this stuff settled before.
No.
I mean, how can you let somebody just ship something in when
No,
they took?
I can, well, because here, real simple. The two large American cigar companies, which are owned by Europeans, ironically enough, General and Altadis, they own the vast majority of the Cuban front marks.
Right.
They own, you name a
In the
leading-
U.S.
They own it in the U.S., and the Cuban government do it, but here's where it gets tangled. The Cuban government, with its almost 50-50 partnership with Altadis, owns all the distribution rights to Cuban cigars throughout the world, with the exception of America, but the American arm of that company owns them in this country.
The front marks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the front mark means the name of the
Yeah,
brand.
like
Cohiba. Cohiba.
Well, let's stick with
Cohiba's
Altadis
in-
as Romeo and Juliet.
Well, simply put,
Right, but Altadis owns Romeo and Juliet in the United
And
States,
Monte
and they
Cristo.
own it in
And-
Cuba.
right.
But Cohiba is owned by General in
Right.
the United States and Cohiba and Altadis in Cuba. So
and a
you can't-
Cohiba, just to bring people up to speed on that, originally General Cigar won that battle, that the trademark belonged in this country for the ones made
Right,
in the
they're
Dominican
gonna have to
Republic.
settle that.
But then the Cuban government appealed it, and at this point in time is winning. So it is possible, hopefully not, but it's possible that sometime in the future, the General Cigar Company, again owned by Europeans, but in this country, will not be able to use the front mark Cohiba on cigars made in the Dominican Republic. I know this gets confusing.
How would that be any different? Why would they not sue over Punch and Pollo and everything else? Why Cohiba?
Well, not punching and those also.
Are they
Sancho
included in that?
Panza, there's a bunch of them.
Oh, there's a ton, but
No, but the
there's
only one that's being litigated is Cohiba so far.
I don't know why. Oh, yeah, I bet you it's because it was produced after
That is correct.
Okay.
Cohiba came into existence after the
the
revolution.
Okay.
So in other words, one could make the argument that General poached the name Cohiba in this country
Yeah.
from Cuba Tobacco, which is the parent company of
Isn't that a way of? Isn't that in a roundabout way almost admitting that, like with Partagas and Hoya and Punch and everything else, like, oh yeah, that was somebody else's, but we took it. Isn't that also
Well,
almost
that's
an
actually what
admission?
happened, because after the revolution and after the, I'll call it confiscation of the companies in Cuba, you know, it was a free-for-all to tie up the trademarks and trademarks of the front marks of all these brands.
Well, Cuba originally did away with all all trademarks. Everything was just a Cuban cigar. After the revolution, there were no. Everything was. I think it only lasted for maybe a year, but there was no such thing as a Partagas or a Hoyo or a Punch. It was.
Well, the Cubans say that's not so. I've asked my friends down there on
Really?
several occasions, executives of Cuban Tobacco, and one of which, you know, I always talk about, who's retired now, and they say that, and he was there at the time. Well, he was young, but they say that's not so. That there always was a Partagas, there always was the Monte Cristo, that there was no cessation of that.
We've all
Melded.
read that before, though, right?
Huh?
I mean, I've read that.
No, I've heard. No, I've heard that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I guess we should.
Wow, we gotta go.
Yeah, we should put our final
Yeah.
commentaries on. Who wants to start?
I will.
Don't all rush through the door.
I got the sweetness is still there. Yeah, a ton of smoke from this
Yeah,
cigar.
wow.
Either that or we moved the fan or something. But I'm really getting the nuttiness you talked
Yeah.
about. That sensation down the center of my tongue sort of is dissipated.
Yes.
I'd give this a 9.0. Or 9. This is a very nice cigar.
What's the retail of
This size is I think 10-20.
it? The generous cigar.
Yeah.
Rob?
I still get that nuttiness taste. I still get the sweetness from it. I'm also getting a hint of cocoa through the retrohale. Very slight hint of cocoa, but it is there. It's well made. It's a beautiful wrapper. The wrapper's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It's really nice. It's also box pressed. I don't know if we said that before, but it's a box
did.
pressed cigar. I'd give this a 9.5. I really, really like this cigar.
And you don't
Why?
take price into
I do
consideration.
not take price into
No, I know you
consideration.
don't.
Shouldn't.
Moose?
Excuse me.
They're in my ears.
I agree with everybody in the taste profile. I'm getting all that too. I get a little tanginess too,
Do you?
a little bit,
Think almost like a citrus.
almost,
Yeah.
Little.
Uh-huh.
a little bit. Gives it a nice, almost floral, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it's nice tanginess to it. Great cigar. I give it a 9.5 too.
Thank you.
Marianne?
Definitely a
cigar.
9.5 for me. It's smoothed out a lot. There is no catch in the back of my throat at all anymore. And the wrapper's gorgeous, shiny, beautifully smooth, and 9.5 for me.
There you go.
Well, I have to be true to my code. I would give it a 9.5 if it were a
Weren't for the price.
dollar or two
Dollar
less
cheaper.
expensive. But I give it a 9.25. It's an excellent cigar. Certainly well worth your putting it into your cigar
Yeah.
inventory. We want to thank you for watching. We want to remind you of our Saturday night show as we're coming out of the winter and hopefully entering the spring any day now. Don't forget, start enjoying cigars. Smoke two at a time if you can.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
I've done that.
And we'll see you next week. Thanks
Ciao
for
for
watching.
now, everybody.
Life's
Bye-bye.
too short to smoke cheap cigars.